Hey everyone.
Hello.
Welcome to Behind the Signs. This is our very first episode together as father and daughter. I am Joe Aranella.
And I'm Elizabeth Aranella Toynes.
Yes, and this is a reboot of the Behind the Signs podcast. And before we get started, I wanted to just take a moment to dedicate our pilot episode to my dear friend, late Keith Lancaster. Keith Lancaster was my business partner with Sign Tracker and helped me to launch the original Behind the Signs podcast. He is no longer with us, sadly. So this podcast is dedicated to Keith, our good friend.
Oh,
yeah.
He was a great guy.
He was a great guy. He was very cool.
You know what, though? The worst part about him leaving just as I'm really coming on board?
What?
He's not here to make fun of you now.
I know.
And that was so enjoyable for me.
That's true.
Yeah.
He did make fun of me through the entire podcast when I was trying to interview guests, which was always great.
Very entertaining.
Anyway,
yeah.
But we are really excited to be here with everyone today. And if you're part of the Behind the Signs community on Facebook, you know that that's a growing group. And I think today we went over 9,400 sign shops.
Crazy.
And 90% of the folks that are on Behind the Signs in Facebook are owners. We actually started tracking that. And it's really exciting to us to see that this group on Facebook is a safe place to be. So before we start talking about that, they
don't know who we are.
Yeah, we wanted to,
That we should start with introducing ourselves.
We're going to start with introducing ourselves.
Just saying.
Okay. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Joe Aranella, and I have been in the sign industry for about 20 years. And look at this gray wisdom. No, I've been in the sign industry for over 25 years now. I started when I was
probably longer than that.
I started in 97. And basically, I came out of a small business background. I had a small janitorial contracting business for years when I was living in California after I got out of the Marine Corps, and started it while I was in college and decided that I had a little bit of a knack for growing small businesses. And so when I graduated college, which I actually went to school to become a minister, that's a whole nother therapy session. But anyway, I did start a janitorial contracting business and grew it and learned a lot about networking and marketing. And so when I moved to Texas, I didn't want to get back into that business. So I decided that advertising was where it was at. So I, of course, had no experience whatsoever. Answered an ad in the newspaper that said $60,000 to $90,000 a year in media sales. And so I answered the ad, called those guys, went to a company called Sign Builders of America. Long gone. It was an old company in Austin, Texas, but I started working there as a salesperson, and after a few months realized they weren't very organized, and I think I could probably do this a little bit better. So one of their head sales guys and myself left and started Sign Tech International. And so, and then from there, we just grew the business. And I'll let Elizabeth tell a little bit about her sign journey.
You have so much more, though. Like after Sign Tech, you didn't just stop there. You grew the business, you sold the business, which is another point of expertise that a lot of people don't have and could use help with.
I did. I grew. Yes, that's true. I did grow Sign Tech. It started off in my house in a room that was maybe 10 feet by 10 feet at most. And I had a business partner, and we basically just worked the phones. It was pre-internet, so we were trying to do national accounts. And so that was back in the day when you'd kind of open up the Signs of the Times magazine, and you'd look in the back and they'd have all the listings of the different states and would be calling in, installers. But anyway.
I told you they still have that.
They do have that.
That's wild.
I know. Actually,
the internet's everywhere, but they still have that. Okay, keep going.
If anybody actually still uses the directory.
Really like to know.
Yeah, if you could put that in the comments, we'd actually like to see that. But anyway, so okay, that's true. There's a little bit more to the story, I suppose. Yeah. But we were very fortunate. We were in a place that, construction was exploding in Austin, Texas back in those. It still is, actually. And we went out. We started first selling national accounts. Eventually got a little office, hired a graphic designer, then ultimately a project manager. We started calling on basically national accounts all over the country, chains of different places like Postnet. We were doing all the family Christian bookstores when those were a thing. We grew the business, and one hire at a time. We were outsourcing at that time all of our fabrication to one shop. And we grew so much that the shop owner came to us and said, if you don't buy my business and make me your shop foreman, I'm quitting because I can't handle the pressure of growing this fast. And so that's how we ended up in fabrication. Over the years, it kept growing. We were in a 15,000 square foot building, ultimately ended up in a 60,000 square foot building. We did projects from, small local chains all the way up to the Dallas Cowboy Stadium. And when I sold the business, we had 60 employees. We were running 2 shifts. And we were doing over $10 million a year worth of business. And so I ended up working for the company for about a year, but the economy's tanked, and so they couldn't afford 2 owners. I had a business partner, and at that time, his kids were small, and I decided I was going to jump out and try to make Sign Tracker work. And I always had this vision that if I can do this in the sign industry, anybody can do it with the right tools.
Now, I do want to say, I know that we've been talking a lot about your past, but I think it's really important to note that the reason Sign Tracker came to be was the lack of both affordable and effective software for this specific to the sign industry for tracking your CRM, but also your job flow.
Yes.
And you developed that when I first knew it, it was all on Excel.
It was.
In Excel spreadsheets. And you sold it way back in the day on a disc.
Yeah, and an 80-page training manual.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I was always looking for really good software, for sign tech. And back then, especially for larger manufacturing shops, we were still just a sign shop, trying to always cover our monthly budget, and we had our sales goals and all that. So, but some of the products that were out there were so expensive for really large manufacturing. So that's why Sign Tracker came about. And so after I left Sign Tech, I tried for about a year to get Sign Tracker off the ground. It was difficult development, and software is way different than owning a sign company. So I ended up going back to work for a local company here in Austin that did really creative and artistic work, and did that for a few years. And then ultimately Sign Tracker started really growing. And in the in-between time, I did start another little sign company with Elizabeth, called Think Big Identity Group, and we had to change the name for legal reasons. Any case, that'll be another therapy session we have to pay for.
Yeah.
But then
I think I'll take over.
Yeah, but then this is where Elizabeth takes over in our family sign history. So thrilling.
So the short of the long of it is it's his fault I'm here. Right? The short of the long of it? Because the long of the short would be a long story. Okay. So the short of the long of it is it's his fault I'm here. And as far as we're going today. No, I do want to clarify. He did not start the business with me. He wrangled me back in little by little with very effective Italian guilt. He's very good at it. I had run away from the sign industry, having helped him growing up any way I could to make money. Not doing well for him, but making money for myself anyway.
And stealing cool stuff from the shop.
Stealing a lot of vinyl. Yeah. I had great frames. Like every poster in my house was framed. So cool. Anyway, so I spent a lot of time in the shop when I was a kid. I grew up around this. I also grew up with them owning the business and running the business. My mom was also an entrepreneur, attorney, but small business attorney. So I grew up around all that, ran away, went to barber school, became a Class A barber, practiced that for a while putting myself through college to get my accounting degree, because I swore I would never end up back in the sign industry. So then I started specializing in small businesses as an accountant, as a controller, and somehow, little by little, I got the, hey, Liz, can you just help me with these books real quick? I just need to send one invoice. Can you just show me how to do it? Which is like showing your kid how to vacuum.
Slippery slope.
Yeah, they're not going to do it right, so you just do it yourself. So here I am. Then he, got to the point where he was needing to focus on Sign Tracker, we'll put it that way. And Russell, my husband and I, we took over and we kind of changed everything from the ground up. So my husband is a graphic designer by education and by, career. And
can I just pause you for one quick second?
Sure. Yeah, well, you already did. So.
I'm very proud of you.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. You guys have taken Studio Zo way...
I haven't even told him the name of it yet. So anyway, then we changed everything to Studio Zo. He mentioned the name change. So that was around the same time we took over.
There was legal reasons.
Yeah, there were legal reasons. But it ended up for the best. We changed it, not just in name, but we changed it in model. So I think prior, you would have considered yourself just a broker. Like
traditional
sign company broker.
Yeah.
We are not. We are a design studio that is design first. We focus on... Well, we have a very deep understanding of the branding. All of our team members are educated in graphic design. All their degrees are graphic design, except for me. I'm the only one. So even our project managers, everyone has a graphic design degree, because to us, that's the most important side of education for our business. It develops what we like to call design thinking, which is just a way to approach things as solutions-based as opposed to problems-based. I think that's very important. So if you have any designers in your shop, talk to them about it. Anyway, so we've kind of changed everything to be very design forward. Our company name is Studio Zo, and we are a higher end boutique type. We still broker signage, but we'll take everything. We start from the beginning. So we do a lot of brand packages. So we start at the very beginning and then bring them all the way through and handle, brokering, fabrication, and installation for their space. And we do full ADA packages and everything. I know a lot of sign companies don't like to touch those, but for us, it's just so important to have a cohesive vision throughout the whole space. Anyway, that was a long-winded way to say, I'm here now. I'm back. And somehow have been wrangled into not only owning a sign company, but doing a sign podcast. I'm in it.
I can't imagine being in the sign business in any way without you. So this is really a lot of fun.
It's great.
Yeah. So we've been working together since Elizabeth was, I don't know when you started hanging out at the original sign shop. I mean, 10 or 11, 12-ish probably.
Yeah, I have pictures of me like sign builders when I was probably 10, 11. Yeah. 11. And then I was pretty much entrenched in it when it was in our office in our house. Because it was That's just true. There all day, every day. And then it was cool, we'd go to the shop downtown, the old Art on 5th building. Yeah. It was cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
all
that to say, why are we here?
Yes, exactly. So we have a long history in the sign industry, and like many of you do. And, we thought about this podcast and the community. And originally Behind the Signs started, I was working with a growth marketer for Sign Tracker. We get Sign Tracker into a little tech accelerator, if you want to know the history of this. And we were trying different ways to not only spread the word about Sign Tracker, but even more importantly, like how do you build a community around what you're doing? Mm-hmm. And so Behind the Signs came about from that. And not that we ever wanted it to be an infomercial for the products that, where we work. We were more interested in having some place that we could support the community. And I think the two of us, both growing up in the sign industry. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've for the most part, my entire adult career has been a sign guy. It's where do you go to get educated? It's so funny.
Yeah.
It's so funny. Like I always see when people sign up, you see this a lot, like School of Hard Knocks.
Yeah. Or like, do you guys know any training programs?
Right.
And there's just not. And so that's kind of, what I was going to speak to. I think all of us can agree if you've been in this industry for any amount of time. I think that the one thing we can agree on is that there is no formal education or training for the sign industry. It's an ongoing issue. For a business owner looking for, a pool of employees or talent, when you're looking to hire someone, there's no place to go where it's like, these are sign industry. There's just not as much.
No.
Double-edged sword, right? Because without formal education, that means a lot of what people are taught about the sign industry, they're taught by older generations, which can be good, but can also come with a lot of maybe habits that you don't agree with or you don't want them to carry on. So, what's your option? Do you get a newbie who you have to teach everything to, but it's a clean slate? Or do you get someone who's been trained and has years of experience, but you have to break a bunch of old habits, or they want to do it their way and it doesn't fit in with your own processes?
Or when you're having successes, an important, I think for me anyway, an important part of, being a successful entrepreneur or a successful business owner is not holding that information, close to the chest, right? It's mentoring others and sharing it.
Yeah.
The problem is in the sign industry, it's so hard to find that path of success that when you find it, you're like,
it's mine.
Yep, I'm not sharing that. And then the sign shop down the street is the enemy, And it's so competitive and
it doesn't have to be anymore, really. I mean,
construction, so much work.
Construction in today's day and age, and the desire for companies to spend so much money on how their business looks. Like there aren't as many companies moving in to just a blank office and being okay with that.
No.
Like they want full build outs. And a lot of times, you can either get brought in through interior design or architects and work through a lot of these cooler installations that aren't typical signage, but are signage, really. I mean, it's made on signage equipment. The bigger question is, where do we go to talk about these things?
And to expand our knowledge base, right? And feel... And not feel like, either A, I'm giving up all my, my secrets,
right.
Or, if I answer a question, or B, I'm going to be slammed or ridiculed if I ask a question, So that is really a big part of what Behind the Signs is for us.
Now, there are other groups on Facebook. We've all heard of them. As a woman, I've been to them. And I don't feel as comfortable asking questions all the time. I will say I think that Behind the Signs Facebook group has morphed into such a great supportive place where people can ask the most beginner questions or very advanced questions or very technical questions. And the community has really shown up, I think, in answering those questions and being supportive of one another, which is great to see.
Yeah, it's actually really cool to... There's a lot I'm learning from the group, because I haven't actively run a sign shop for the past 10 years. I do spend almost all day, every day talking to sign companies because of my current job situation. But so that is, I guess, the why, behind the signs.
Why behind? Yeah, I mean, I think also like what you guys might not know about Joe, Sign Guy Joe. As you know, he's my dad. He's been in this industry for a long time. He just told you all that. But what he didn't tell you and what I know about him is I think his bigger skill than helping organize companies and grow them and help them is just fostering community and like really being there and creating space for people to feel safe to ask these questions. And that doesn't come, like that's not a skill that you learn. It's just something that you have. So I think that you having this podcast, or I mean us, because you drug me into it, having this podcast, and even the group that we're managing that you started and you really started developing this community is just, you have such a wealth of knowledge, and combine that with your ability to foster community, it's just going to be such a great space.
Well, and then helping...
And resource for people.
Yes, exactly. And helping, I think the Behind the Signs community, if you're participating in active conversations, you do feel it is... It's a safe place to ask questions, to learn, and to grow, and to give. Because
absolutely,
because that's how we elevate the sign industry together, as the slogan is.
So cheesy though.
Yeah, I like that.
I know you do. You love love.
I do love love. That's true.
So I think we've justified our own position here, at least as much as we're going to. Yeah. I mean, we are who we are. Yeah. I just kind of want to now explain like what we're going to be doing. Why is this a little different? The reason I like it is, so kind of our format is, every other week we're going to have something coming out, I think.
Yep, every other week, and it might increase as we get better at this. We'll see. Since we both have day jobs right now, so
full-time jobs.
But we're going to interview industry experts and basically the goal is going to be education, well, to answer your questions and to be supportive of the things that you need, but also to help you think outside the box, right? So how can I expand my business?
I think we're going to do that through bringing in experts. We're going to do some shop tours with you guys. But the most fun, the most exciting, I think, are the community questions.
Yes.
So, as you know, maybe you don't know. If you don't know, and if you're not a part of our Facebook community, you should be. But we put out a form on the Facebook community that is community questions.
And it's pinned to the top.
It is pinned to the top. You know how to do that.
I do. I had to watch like 3 YouTube videos.
Yeah, that's okay. They're there for a reason. Anyway, so if you want to submit a community question that can be featured on our podcast, that's where you do that. And you can do that anonymously if you want to. It doesn't require putting in your information. If you want us to shout you out, just drop your information in there with your question, and we will give you credit for that question. So with that, today, we have our first community question.
Community question. Okay, you're going to end up on the behind the signs community question board. Okay, so today's question comes from Amanda Bacon. She is the owner of Hardy Sign and Design. Shout out to you. You are now famous.
Thanks, Amanda. Yeah.
Our first podcast together. It's a little rough, guys, so thanks for bearing with us. But here is the question. I think this is a great one. Does it get any easier? No.
Nah.
That's it.
Nope. Community question over. That was a great segment, guys.
No, Amanda, that's a great question.
Yeah.
And so, look, I think it's no surprise to say that the sign industry, owning a sign shop or working in the sign industry, it's very busy. It's very hectic.
It's akin to construction. It works hand in hand with construction, and construction is rough. I mean, it's a very,
there's a lot of moving parts, and I think the important thing is to, at least from my perspective, is to enjoy the process, right? Because there's always going to be bumps in the road. There's going to be major wins and some losses, and that's just part of the process. I look back, I go into sign shops now, and I'll tell you, I mean, there is an aching in my heart. I love being around the routers and the painters and seeing crane trucks pull in and out. And look, I think back about the painful parts. Do I like, trying to project, like herding cats, project manage 100, moving parts at the same time?
You don't.
Sometimes I miss the challenge of that. Most days I probably don't. Yeah, I don't. But I do miss the shop. I miss being around the creative people and seeing things go from concept to paper to excited clients and seeing the components being made and assembled and then to see it in the field and know that it has an impact on my customers' goal or their business.
Like, that is the part, every time we have a new team member, it's such a great moment. The first time they see their project go from paper to the physical space, it's always just this moment of like, whoa.
And I think too, you have to figure out what's your niche, right? Yeah. Because look, if I was to start a sign shop all over again,
you won't.
My wife would divorce me.
Yeah,
but
I would divorce you.
If I was to do it over again, I would focus on maybe a niche industry or niche group of clients. I would work at a slower and steadier pace. I'd be a little kinder to myself because I did 10 years of working 60 hours a week. And, at the end of the day, was that a good idea? I don't know. I built a successful company, so I was lucky in a lot of ways, combined with hard work. But if I could do it over again, I wouldn't have sacrificed that much. I would have slowed down, stepped back, done less work, done better work, and just enjoyed the day while I was working.
You still don't do that.
I'm working on it. I'm trying to get there.
So I have done a lot of the things that you just said, right? Like, I am in a very niche market. I've definitely, I specialize in specific things where, we don't do a lot of like big box stores because we're just not a good fit for them. Mm-hmm. But construction is something that does make the sign industry a challenge. And if it's not construction, of course, I think it's the concept of pricing for signage that is hard for people, and time frames, right? And like they see something and they want it done immediately. And it's like, well, this is going to take like 6+ weeks, depending on permitting. You know, it takes a long time. And if we're talking ADA, add a few more weeks to that, depends on what you're doing for ADA. I digress. I think the biggest thing that's been so helpful for me, what does make it easier, is hiring a really good team and training them, taking the time to train them. If you're at the beginning of this,
and trust them.
God, isn't that hard?
That's hard.
It's really hard. As the owner of a company who used to do all of the project management for our company, that was one of the hardest hurdles really, is just delegating and trusting that things are going to get done. I'm also this is going to come as a surprise to you, I'm very A-type personality. Shocking.
She gets that from her mom.
I do. Yeah. So I think that letting go and it not being done exactly how I would have done it is very hard, but so worth it in the long run, right? Like if you set up systems, those systems for the most part get followed. And if they don't, you can always redirect back to the system. So I think my advice to you, advice so that it does get easier, is take the time to set up systems now, even if they seem ridiculous. Like, even if it's like, this is a banner.
It's
like,
going to slow me down.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It's setting up that framework so that the bigger things, when they start coming in, and they will start coming in, can easily flow through that system. And yeah, you might have to make some tweaks as things grow and change, but at least you have some framework. I think that definitely helped us. But when we first started, I mean, my husband's experience was with, Dell Computers. So he was an art director there. And so he was wanting to run the business at a corporate level, like organization wise. And we did. And my God, did it seem so dumb at the beginning. Like, it just seemed like, why do I have to put this file in 4 different places? Like, I just need to put this in production. Yeah, but as we've gotten bigger, it's been one of our saving graces. Like, we are just very organized. Everything's very structured. And that doesn't just help for projects, it helps for team members. So when we hire people, it helps them understand what the process is. It also helps them feel more secure in their position and the company. Yeah.
I think the last thing about it getting easier too, because I think it is more about enjoying the moment. It's great to have big goals, right? Like, hey, I want to build a $10 million sign company, because then I'm going to have all these systems in place. I'm going to have all these great clients, and then I'm going to sell it. And, that's fine. You can have those big goals, but in the process, as you're trying to focus on things you can enjoy and helping people to reach their goals and your team members and your clients, don't neglect yourself. I think that's important, self-care. And I think you're probably much better at that than I was when I was running my sign shop at your age.
That is a very large assumption.
I think you're better at it than I am.
I'm not so sure.
Don't neglect the self-care portion.
Right. Very important.
Of living in the moment, because burnout is real, and the sign industry can swallow you up. And so take the time to, whether it's go for a run in the morning before you get to work, or at lunchtime, walk away from your desk. You don't have to slam your sandwich while you're trying to work a quota.
No, give yourself a break.
And if possible, I know a lot of times you have to work on the weekends, but if possible, take some time on the weekends. Go for a nice bike ride or a walk, or spend time with your family.
You might have to work on the weekends, and I understand the beginning is different, right? The beginning is a little different, but try your best to structure that time in. Yeah. So even if it's not Saturday and Sunday, you're off. Be off on Sundays, or be off on Saturdays. And one of them.
And I know it's like, how you hear all this today, right? Work-life balance. Well, that person was never in the signage tree, I'll tell you that.
They sure weren't. But let me tell you how important that is.
But I think self-care is the key.
It is important. And the construction industry is a little different. It just is. And like I said, we're just so close to the construction industry. We work so closely with them, I want to say. Because I don't think signs are in construction, which I know it's very controversial.
Yeah.
It's fine. We can talk about that another day. But I think that still putting up boundaries, learning to say no, which is really hard, but so good for you. But also understanding, like you said, burnout is real and you're less effective. If you just keep going and going and going and not taking time to reset, walk away for lunch. Not all day. Walk away for 30 minutes. Start it at 30 minutes.
You'll make less mistakes, for sure.
You'll make less mistakes. Which means you'll make more money.
Yeah.
You'll also you'll be more productive, right? Just walk away, turn away from the screen. They say you're supposed to do it every 20 minutes. I don't know how people would get anything done at that point, but
they didn't work in the sign business.
Respect yourself.
But anyway.
Yeah.
Well,
with that,
I think this is it.
Episode 1. What up? Oh, they're not going to like that, the sound people. Sorry about that.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today on our first episode of the reboot of Behind the Signs with Joe and Liz. And ask your questions. Again, if you're in the Facebook community, you'll see it pinned to the top, this little form. If you're not on Facebook and you're seeing this through the YouTube channel or through another link to this podcast, then just shoot us your questions at hello@behindthesigns.com. Again, it's hello@behindthesigns.com. Liz and I both get those questions. We will do our best to research. If it's an answer that we can give you, we'll do it. Otherwise, we'll bring in an expert that'll be way above our pay grade.
Yeah, you won't just have to listen to us all the time.
No. Anyway, we appreciate you guys. We love you. We love the sign business, and we'll talk to you soon.
That was a lie. But we love you.
And the sign business.
You're taking it too far.
Don't listen to her. We love the sign business.
Bye.
Bye.